All right, gentlemen, welcome to Metal and Forge, episode 1.
Heck yeah.
Let's do it.
Whose idea was this? Kent, you came up with it, right?
Well, I
Always
sent the
Kent's
text
idea.
out that initiated it, but I mean, we've talked about it before.
Yeah, I love it. I've been looking forward to doing podcasts with you, and Austin, I don't know you as well, but I'm looking forward to getting to know you. I know any friend of Kent is a friend of mine.
Totally.
Well, let's do a quick round of intros for everybody. Austin, why don't you start us off and just tell us who you are and what you're thinking about?
Austin Lapp, 36 years old. Have a wife, 2 kids, one on the way. And real estate. And I just love anything personal growth related, spiritual, personal. I love to learn. I love to ask questions. I love to hear the why behind, I love to pull curtain back on things and do digging and tease things out. Just because I've always been curious. My mom said that when I was a kid, I grew up 2 words, Dutch words I learned, Vassal, which means, what's that? Vassal,
Vassal.
And people would always accuse me of asking too many questions. So that's me. So that's why I'm here. Love curiosity.
I like curiosity. That's a valued trait around these parts. All right, over to you, Kent. Tell us about you.
Yeah, Kent Lapp. I'll be 40 at the end of this month. Hey.
Come on.
5 kids. Oldest is 14 now. Youngest is, 14, 12, 10, 8, and 6. Youngest is 6. In Nashville, I got that entrepreneurial streak, and I like to feel like I can say things that I feel like need to be said, that I want to say. So I feel like that this kind of goes hand in hand with the entrepreneur thing, but I feel like I value freedom highly,
Yeah.
So I kind of think I've always been that way, probably a little contrarian,
I like it.
So I got Amish Co. We're selling Amish made buildings. If someone needs an Amish made building, we're renting out roofing trailers. If someone's a roofer, hit us up. We're getting into portable storage in Nashville. So if you want like a pod, but you want a better experience, hit us up. And then my wife's doing sourdough bread with baked and freeze. So if you're in Nashville and want to have some of the best bread you've ever had, hit us up.
I can vouch for that bread. That stuff is legit.
Well, I know you make sourdough too. I'm sure. Actually, I'm not sure if have I had yours yet, Patrick? I'd like to sometime.
Not yet. You'll have to come visit. Yeah.
I'd love to.
Well, my name's Patrick Miller, and I'm lucky to get to be here with these fine gentlemen. Kent and I have been good friends for the better part of a decade, and I'm just getting to know Austin better. But I am the host, coach, and mentor at The Good King, and it's a community of like-hearted men who are committed to embodying the ethos of the good king in their life, Jesus. And we do that in community together, and I am privileged to walk with these guys as we continue to transform and grow. Austin, you mentioned the idea of personal growth and transformation. I think that's a common interest among us is, what leads us to a better place in terms of being more of who God created us to be and greater reflections of his love and glory and all of that. So those are things I'm super passionate about, and I know you guys are too. And a lot of the conversations we have had have centered around what's going on in the culture, what's going on in our homes and our hearts and our families, and trying to make sense of the way that reality presents itself so that we can be more true, more compassionate, stronger, more courageous, you name it, better. So let's talk about Metal and Forge. That's the name of our podcast. Metal speaks to the strength of character that I see in each one of you guys. And I like that we're all testing our metal by launching a new podcast. Tell me your thoughts about the name.
Yeah, Patrick, can I just read this definition of metal? It's super short, but when, we were throwing names around, and metal, mettle, was not a word that was on my radar. And I love words. I like I like stumbling into new words, words, language. It's fascinating. But metal was not a word that was on my radar. I had always thought metal as in the MEDDLE, where you meddle in people's business and stick your nose where it doesn't belong. But so I Googled metal, and this is the definition that popped up: a person's ability to cope well with difficulties or to face a demanding situation in a spirited and resilient way. And I love that so much.
Come on.
Demanding situations in a spirited and demanding way. I think that's really cool. So yeah, that's the metal part of Metal and Forge.
I Googled it and I saw the same thing. I was like, dang, I didn't know that was a word, but I'm glad I just discovered it because that is right on.
Yeah. What about forge? Transformation. It's kind of what I think about. Process of shaping and transformation.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I'm joking around, but I just think of when I think of forge, I'm thinking of that iron getting hot, getting smashed around. Hey, good stuff gets made that way.
Yeah,
that's right. It's it's the challenging, maybe less pleasant part of the process, but being forged into something new, you have to be forged into something, and before you have the metal to meet the demands of the journey. So. Kent, what are you kind of hoping that this continuing conversation, this weekly podcast that we're doing, what do you hope that we're able to understand as its purpose?
Yeah, well, I know you guys have more noble goals here, but I'm here to have fun with you guys and hopefully meet some interesting people along the way. That's about it for me.
I love it.
But no, I think I am actually looking forward to the topics. We've kind of carved out some of the main topics here. I think a lot of these are actually pressing topics for our day. So I'm really excited to be discussing these things. The one thing that I've always found or noticed about podcasting was, and I still don't know exactly why this is, it's really hard to duplicate another way. Sure, I could get a couple of my friends, and neither of you guys live close to me, but get a couple local friends and be like, hey, every Thursday night, can we get together and talk? Sure, you could, but you don't really. And it almost seems, I don't know, there's something about podcasting where we carve out a space here. We can talk freely amongst ourselves, but then also hopefully it's entertaining and maybe even helpful at times for other people. So I just like the medium. So I'm excited about that medium with you guys on a weekly basis. And it would be cool if, we'd get some other people chiming in, whether that's questions, whether that's whatever it looks like, to meet other people along the way. That'd be fantastic.
Love it. What about you, Austin?
Yeah, I've been meditating on this the past week, and it was just an impulse yes. And I was like, wait, why did I say yes? Impulsivity has waned in my life with age, but I guess I just want to hear different schools of thought from, someone I know or know pretty well and someone I don't know, but I'm looking forward to knowing. The biggest limiter in life is, me, my thoughts. And I'm always looking to expand my thinking because I feel that if I can do that, I can believe for greater things. So I guess to sum it up, I did it because, I don't know, I want to be stretched, I guess.
Yeah.
And I love good conversation, always have. So that's an easy yes, but yeah, that's my bottom line for me.
Yeah. For me, it was a lot about community. I mean, at the core, community with you two. And I hope that the folks who find this find a sense of community in it, if it's for them. And that they can contribute to the conversation too. I'd love to have guys join us, people who have gone, have learned something that we would benefit from hearing them talk about, or just somebody who'd be a good hang, So I think there's a lot of fun conversations ahead of us.
Here.
Cheers. Yeah, I've got my Yeti full of water.
Hey, I got a little vodka
I'll raise
here.
my glass. Raise my glass to you. I want to just take a moment at the start of the show to just think about and talk a little bit about what's going on in Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee. It's hard to understand exactly what's going on. Obviously, there was the kind of devastating storm that they had is something that we don't see very often. But I kind of get the sense that I don't have a very good picture of what's going on just based on the media and the news. And maybe it's just this kind of ingrained mistrust of the media or reflexive mistrust. But I hear things and I kind of filter it through the lens of, I wonder if we're getting the straight skinny on this. And not from a conspiratorial standpoint, but maybe. I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I don't know. I've come to really appreciate X since it's become sort of a free platform that doesn't involve itself in state-sponsored censorship and propaganda anymore. And so what I have been seeing on X, and from some people I would trust, is that the media does seem to be underreporting what's going on. But to be honest with you guys, I wouldn't know because I don't have TV. I don't watch Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, CBS. I don't watch any of that. I don't want it. So I wouldn't necessarily know. And I also don't have any newspapers getting brought to the house anymore. So I wouldn't know, but I have heard, I've seen it talked about a few times that it does seem like it's underreported. I don't think you have to think, it doesn't take too much thinking to figure out why that might be, because
I was trying to figure that out actually, because it's not evident. Like if there is a supposed conspiracy or a coordinated messaging, I'm always trying to get at like what might be the motivation. And obviously you can't always know, but even if you have a reasonable explanation, you can sometimes kind of understand, well, okay, they would have a motive to do that. But I don't quite understand why in an age when attention is everything, if there's this storm that's worthy of our attention, I mean, the level of human suffering and destruction that I have seen, it's like, this seems like it would be worth talking about. Even if you were just totally cynical and trying to get clicks and views, like I don't quite understand the motive. Fill me in.
Well, what I would say is, we're a month out from a pretty major election, and most of mainstream media now, not all, but most of mainstream media is aligned firmly and clearly and blatantly and unashamedly with the left. And sure. I think when something like this happens, this is a really hard navigating these natural disasters in country. They're really, really hard to navigate. I mean, wasn't it George W. that just got raked, from Hurricane Katrina? And right. So even if they have all confidence in Biden and Harris's ability to manage this thing, even if they had all confidence, it's still, I don't think, going to be something they're going to super highlight because of being this close to the election. And then if they don't have super confidence, or they do feel like the louder the noise is around this disaster, the worse it's going to be, for those trying to win the election. That's sort of what I'm assuming is these things are tricky to navigate. Even if you do the best job possible, it's almost like a lose-lose situation a little bit. It seems like, so in all fairness to Biden and Kamala, this is really tough to navigate. But I think there is a level beyond that, which is, I don't think I think most people would understand at this point that our president has some pretty serious mental problems. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm not saying that as like I'm, just a knock. I'm just saying that's pretty objective at this point. We have a president that is not functioning properly in his mind, and it just is what it is. So when you're trying to navigate a situation that could be this explosive, I think probably that's what's sort of, pulling down the rhetoric. And then some people would probably say there's another step beyond that, which is the neocons do not want attention on this natural disaster either, because they want the attention on what's going on in Ukraine. They want the attention on what's going on in Israel. They want the attention, placed there so that we can get people rallying to go to war again, because it's one of the things that we love to do. But having said all that, it does seem like it's getting underreported. There's two things that were a concern to me recently. One was just coming out three, coming out and saying, hey, we're giving everyone here $750. So if you come into this country illegally, you get an EBD card, you get set up, you're good to go. The plan was to have, from Kamala's plan is to have first-time home buyers get $25,000. And so now here you have established families, and the whole family gets $750, and everything that you owned has been washed down the river. That doesn't seem like enough. It's kind of reminiscent of like what went on in Maui. So that was one thing it was just hard to see them actually get on video and say that everyone's getting $750, because man, I'd be embarrassed to get on video and say that.
Yeah.
But then the other thing was that then they're saying that FEMA's running out of money. So we've been sending hundreds of billions to Ukraine. We don't seem to be running out of money out of that purse string, but for the people in North Carolina, we seem to be running out of money. And then the other thing I saw Pete Buttigieg say today was, to your point, Patrick, now they're saying that private people cannot fly drones.
Right.
And the reason stated was so that it doesn't interfere with aircraft.
Wait, this is across the board?
That's a little suspicious to me. Now we're trying to like limit video drones. Now I'm curious.
This is nationwide?
I just think
this is over the affected area.
Just over the affected area.
Gosh.
But look, I just think it is a tough thing to manage. I haven't been thinking super critically about how it's being managed currently, except for the $750, except for saying FEMA's running out of money. That doesn't make any sense to me. It's just such a devastation. I mean, what was it now? I think we're up to 200 lives lost, was it? I mean,
I haven't seen a number past 180, but
yeah. Yeah. I think I heard 200, and you see some of these videos. I mean, it's horrific.
I don't disagree with any of what you said, Kent, but it's so pathetic to think that I don't actually give them any pass on that this is difficult to manage. Of course it's difficult to manage, but we're talking about a government that has 750 bases in 80 countries across the world, bigger than any empire ever. Like, if you want to talk about things that are difficult to manage, that's pretty difficult to manage. Have we become so inept and so incompetent that, of course, while Joe Biden isn't managing anything, he's not capable of leading in the way that we would think of it, it doesn't seem like it should be that hard to have people running these organizations who would be able to respond to something like this. Why aren't there just several thousand people, Peace Corps or something, or National Guard or something going in there with basic, and I know they are to a certain extent, but it seems like the response is just like you said, well, we're running out of money. We sent all our money to Ukraine. I mean, if that's all true, and they're trying to underreport on it, like the kickback from that is going to be huge, because to your point, you can't hide that because of X and stuff like that. You can't tamp that down forever. And if they indeed, people are going hungry. There's people who have not had food for several days. If you're cold and wet and hungry, and the government is not showing up to help you, and you expected them to, and, not only are they not helping, they're getting in the way. I saw reports of FEMA confiscating private aid relief and under the guise of them needing to be the ones directing it.
Wow.
And stuff like that. Like, you want to set up a problem. That's how you set it up. Get people good and hungry, and then step in and start, interfering with the flow of aid and kind of directing it in the way that you want to. Let's just hope that things are, work out peacefully, but that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, that's not good. The other thing that I had seen was that the local military base there, I think it's Fort Bragg, that's the closest, was really not deploying too much of anything. When
I heard 1,000 troops though somewhere. Where did I hear that Biden sent 1,000 troops down there? I thought I read it somewhere this morning.
It could be. This was more like a day or two after it was happening that people were wondering why more planes, helicopters, support, etc., wasn't coming out of the local military base. But I haven't been following it that closely in the last day or two, so it could be more that is now happening, which is good to hear.
Yeah, let's hope so. But I do, back to the point of, I do feel like it's hard to get the real story about what's going on. And so,
but it's been like that with everything. I mean, even the the Israel-Palestinian war. There's a guy in our church I was talking to last night, and he did several tours in Iraq, and basically got back and holed up for 10 years, wouldn't leave his house until finally he started branching out there and coming to church. And I asked him, I was like, well, what made you want to come to church? And he said, well, when the war started last, I don't know, whenever it was, he said, I heard all these things of like, well, this is what they're doing over there to the kids and to the families. And then people are saying, oh no, that's not true. That's false reporting. He's like, it's not. Unfortunately, I've been there and I've seen it, and it's horrific. And it brought up all this PTSD in him. And he said, I realized that even being here, like, hold up, I was going to have to deal with my crap sometime. And so he did. And he's doing great. Like, lost 70 pounds. Like, his face is shinier. He got baptized. Like, all these amazing things. But it just kind of made me think, like, oh, it is actually a thing that, like, this stuff is not getting reported. Like, there's things that people dying and torture happening over there, and even down south. Like, I agree with you, Patrick. I don't get it. I mean, it's got to be political. I agree with what Kent's saying. It has to be because of where we're at in the election cycle. Even the interest rates,
Yeah. Well, I do feel unprepared to have much of an opinion on the storm response because I do truly feel like it's hard to get accurate info. But my heart goes out to the people who are suffering because that level of disruption to your life is hard to imagine. If you just all of a sudden find yourself stranded, you can't get out of the little neighborhood you're in, and you're hurt, and your kids are hurt, and you're hungry, and you're out of food, and you're out of toilet paper, and you're wet, and you barely have a place to get out of to live in that kind of uncertainty and that kind of suffering it's pretty, that's the kind of stuff that you think of when you think of, well, we should prepare for, we should be a prepper. We should prepare for something that's coming down the road. It's like, those are the kinds of scenarios that you think about. It's like, yeah. So my heart just goes out to him, and it does kind of motivate me to go, well, what are the risks that I'm facing here, and what can I do to prepare well? Because I do think there's this sense in which there is kind of an apocalyptic tone to the news cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And then that kind of layers onto, there's a lot of disruption happening in the political realm and in the religious realm, like churches and the role of church in culture, and all of that is changing. There's kind of a moving away from the kind of traditional Christianity that we've seen over the last, 20, 30 years as being very prominent in the culture. So there's just a lot of things changing, but there is a groundswell of, I would say, true believers or kingdom of heaven, believers who are, there's a groundswell of that's happening, while the kind of more, the thinner layer of the cultural Christianity and the cultural stories and all of that, there's a lot of upheaval, but then there's a lot of peace and flourishing that's happening way down here at the kind of kingdom of heaven level, where people are almost, they're changing how much power and energy they give to the kind of, they focus more on, okay, let me just follow God. Let me make sure I'm being who I need to be. Let me get my marriage right, and let me get my family right. There's a growing movement of people who realize that things are shaking up top, but are grounded and solid down below and are flourishing as a result. So you kind of have these two experiences of reality in a sense. But Kent, I see you nodding. Do you see some of that too?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the one thing that we can see clearly from the storm in North Carolina is when the storm comes in your life metaphorically and you do not have a boat or an ark, if you will be swept downstream.
Yeah.
So the time to work on your mettle, if you will, is now. And
that's right.
You need to have you need to know what you think, you need to know what you believe. You need to have purpose. You need to do all things in love, and you need to start now because there's storms coming. And if those storms catch you off guard, you're going to be swept down the river.
Yeah. I've been thinking about Noah in that perspective. You know, it's easy to read that story in Genesis and think, well, God came down and sketched out what this ark would look like and told him explicitly to build it. But I think we have to assume that Noah's apparatus for hearing from God was really no different than ours. You know, he built that boat as an ark of safety from the coming floods based on this sense of calling and intuition and creativity and wisdom that God imparted to him through, well, however God speaks to us, like he does to all of us, if we listen. And he built an ark of safety that rescued his family and the rest of creation. And I think we're all called to do that. We're all called to build an ark of safety for the coming floods. If you're a godly man, you're a good man. It says that Noah was a good man in his generation. It's like, well, build an ark because there's always floods coming, and they're metaphorical sometimes. Sometimes they're real, like they were here. But you know, some of the cultural changes that are happening, the way that the Overton window is moving in the culture to, you know, promote things that are inhuman in some ways, you know, and there's a kind of, that's a metaphorical flood that's coming in our culture, the kind of post-Christian collapse. And what does an ark of safety look like from that coming metaphorical flood? I think that's one of the things that I've been thinking about is, well, what kind of mode of being would be a sufficient ark of safety for me and my family? How then should we live so that we can withstand the coming floods? What's the proper mode of being? And that's kind of one of the things that we wanted to talk about tonight is what is the proper mode of being for the season of life that you're in? And I'm curious, Austin, if you mentioned that you've been interested in growth and transformation. So thinking about creating an environment in your home and creating an ethic and a culture in your home that provides an ark of safety and a spiritual life with God that is an ark of safety for you and your marriage and your family and all of that. Those might all be new ways of talking about this for you, but I'm curious how you think about all of that.
Can you ask that in another way?
Yeah. So when you've got kids, right? Two, yep. You said third one on the way.
Yep.
It's like, what kind of culture in your home are they going to grow up into?
Right.
And
right.
Does it communicate the values and spiritual life with God that will
good question. Okay.
sustain them through the coming floods? Right.
Right. So yes, I think I know what you're saying. So one thing that we prayed a lot for our first daughter, I mean, every night, had her bedtime routine, put her to bed. For my kids, I just want them to be able to hear the voice of God. Because in John 10, my sheep know my voice. And you either know his voice or you don't. And what I have found in my own experience is his voice has qualities with it. Like if there's a sense of foreboding doom or condemnation or pressure in a negative way, it's not Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so for me, like that's been a huge core value in our home on a spiritual standpoint is teaching our kids how to hear from God. And we have to put them in events, churches, even schools, God willing, if there would ever be one someday that cultivates that, because I feel that if my kids can grow up knowing what the voice of Jesus sounds like, and I'm not talking about the Bible, like, yes, that's the litmus test for everything, but what does it feel like? What does
Yeah.
it like? And so what I try and do is when I do hear from God, I try to make mental note, sometimes even like write it down. Not so good at that, but what was the essence behind that? Like, how did it feel? How did that make me feel? Um, and that's really what our prayer is for our kids from a spiritual standpoint is I want to know how to hear from God because I want to lead my family well. But more than that, if I can't hear from God, like if I can't include him in daily life, how do I expect them to do the same?
Yeah.
So that's
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's a huge thing I've been thinking about. And I referenced it with the Noah thing, right? Because Noah heard from God and he
did.
like that.
But it was weird. I mean, back then, see, we know the end from the beginning in a lot of these stories. Like, if you just put yourself there for a minute and they have underground plumbing, there's no rain, and this whacked out prophet is building a ship because the plumbing's going to break and there's water going to come from the sky. Like, there's a reason I think he's in the Hebrews 12, the faith Hall of Fame. But that's extreme faith and hearing from God that I'm not there. But Noah had to get there somehow. Like he didn't start there.
Well, yeah, all I'm pointing out is he lived out that connection with that inner voice very explicitly.
Right.
And in James 1:21 it says something like submit or obey. I'm just going to look it up so I don't butcher it.
Don't butcher it.
No, it's the Bible. Because this is something we've been talking about with our kids too. And this is where it says, get rid of all moral filth and all of that. But then the second part of the verse is where okay, so therefore, get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you.
Right.
So that word is the Greek word logos.
It is. Okay. I wanted to get Raymar logos.
Right.
Okay.
So humbly accept the logos that has been planted in you. So when we obey the word of God, that is obeying the logos, and that is planted in you, and it has the power to save you. A lot of times we reflexively think of the Bible as the word of God, which it doesn't rob anything from the Bible to point out that the logos is in you. Right. And the logos is the same logos that was in John 1. In the beginning was the word, logos, and the word was with God, and the word was God. And it goes on to say, I'm actually going to look that up too, because it's so beautiful and powerful.
Same was in the beginning with God. Without him were all things. Yeah.
Without him was not anything made that was made.
Pretty crazy
so
passage
that
right
the
there.
the logos that existed at the beginning of time, that is the eternal Spirit of Christ, that was in Jesus, fully unified in Jesus. That same logos is planted in you and has the power to save us, and that's the word that we need to obey, and it has to harmonize with the. There's a harmony that happens, like you said, because we don't always tune into that voice, like you mentioned, and it's like Noah tuned into it and lived it out, like in very direct and explicit way. And one of the things we've been talking about with the kids is that, like, learn to hear that voice of God, and when you commune with God, of course He is beyond you, but He's also in you, and so learn to commune with Him in you. And beyond you. There's there's an expansiveness to that. But I think for me, the reason I've been so focused on that is I had shut that down, and I had not perceived of God as there and as being living in me, and manifesting Himself in my consciousness. I didn't get that when I was growing up and so
I didn't either.
I think if we're going to be the kinds of leaders who provide that ark of safety for our families, We have to tune into that voice, that word that's been planted in us. And, I think one of the things I'd like to talk about is what some of the practices are for that, because obviously we want to try to put our children in a place where they can learn to hear that.
Right.
And tune into that. And it's almost like you're tuning a dial on a radio knob, and it's like, well, I can listen to the ego and mind level of my consciousness and drop into fear and disconnection, or I can harmonize with the spirit, with the truth, the highest spirit, the Holy Spirit, and connect to that logos that has been planted in me. And then the gifts and talents and creativity and the things that God meant for me, when I tune into that, that's when that flows from me. That's when the fruits are produced. Grafted into that vine, the nourishment flows and it produces the fruit that was intended. But when we connect more to the fear, disconnection, ego, mind consciousness, and that's the inner voice, and it's a different way of seeing the world, and it changes the way we perceive reality. It changes the way we relate to people. It changes how we show up in the world. So it's something I'm really trying to get my kids connected to.
I've been thinking of that concept of knowing him. Like, that passage where he talks about you cast out demons in my name and you prophesied, but I never knew you. And when I was, the church I grew up in, they use that verse to say, well, all prophecy and casting out demons are bad because, but I think we missed the point of that verse where, like, do you know him?
Yeah.
Like, do you know him? Do you just know him, of him, or do you actually know him? Like, do you know him by experience? Like, the word know in John, if you study that, it means to know by experience, not to know by head knowledge, not to, like, we're very German. Like, I'm very Swiss German in my thinking. I try to solve all my problems up here. Problem is it doesn't really work spiritually.
Yeah.
And so I've been thinking about that lately. Like, I have this sense that, like, when we get to heaven, we're going to be more us than we realize. And if we know him down here, like, I'm getting to know him in deeper ways recently. It's amazing. It's hard because I feel like the closer I get to Jesus, the tighter the path is, like, the less leeway I have. Like, I mean, believe me, I'm human. Like, I'm not perfect, but I just feel like the closer and that's actually scriptural, tight is the gate, narrow is the way that leads to life.
Yeah.
And it's hard, but it leads to life. And so that's what I've been thinking about lately is, like, okay, do I know him? Like,
yeah. Kent, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, I think that back to the kids, what I'm focused on with the kids is having them, I guess, become tough, having them become strong, having them become independent. I would kind of lump all that together.
Resilient.
And then, resilient, developing that mettle.
Yeah.
And then secondly, learning how people work. What's the design that God put into people? What's the design in the universe? How do things work?
Yeah.
How do things work best? And aligning themselves with that. And most of that just comes from being around their friends, being at school or being with their groups, whatever. Us offering some examples, maybe more is caught than taught, but also, some counsel sometimes. And then thirdly, also kind of just and it's all spiritual, right? This stuff isn't segregated, but the third one is, I guess, just like, is seeing God in everything, seeing God as before all things, above all things, in all things, after all things, just the expansiveness of God and, and appreciating that, I guess, in a way, understanding that, seeing that. 'Cause I think there's a lot of beauty in that,
100%.
So those are kind of the three big buckets probably that were.
Question from someone younger here, because you guys have kids that are. I mean, Patrick, aren't your oldest like
22, 20?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what's on my mind these days is like I had a relationship with my parents, but it wasn't. I've seen parents where, the dictatorship becomes less as they become adults, and it becomes more of a friendship. And I'd rather have influence than authority when they're teenagers. You know what I mean? I'd rather have influence on their lives than be like, you have to do this because I said so. How do you guys, how do you become your kids' friends?
You can only be your kids. Yeah, you can only be your kids' friends at one stage in their life, either when they're adults or when they're children. Because if you are their friends when they're children, they'll resent you when they're adults.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm thinking ahead. Now, my kids are 4 and 1.5. They're not my friends.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
I love
them. I know you're not saying. I was just sharing that for the audience. But yeah, I see that you don't.
How did you? Because that takes time. You're talking relationship. What did you guys do to, and what are you doing to build relationship with your kids?
The big thing that I think is key for the kids is to communicate delight and to genuinely delight in them at every stage, even when you're actively parenting. Like with our older kids now, we exercise almost no authority. We have 4 older kids from 15 to 22. And we just I almost never pull the dad card and just say no or
That's what I want. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't remember the last time I did that. It's more, but it is influence. And I think a part of it, it's different for the boys and with the girls, but
I got 2 girls.
Living in integrity and living in alignment with your values, when they see you living the way that you say you want to live, and you're open enough with them that they know you, really, they know you. You're not emotionally closed off to them. It's like, then they see that you're someone that they can respect and that someone that they can trust and that they're safe with. And boy or girl, they're going to allow you into their life more. And so being open with them and sharing your own journey with God and sharing your intimacy with God and opening up to them and letting them kind of map reality in that way and help them understand the way that God works in our lives. It creates one of the things that I think
That's good.
Because with my older sons, well, I have 2 sons, they're 18 and 20. And we are now good friends. We can be good friends in a lot of ways. I still have to be the dad in some, but I'm always playing the dad in the sense that I delight in them. I challenge them appropriately. Jordan Peterson says that when you love somebody, that you are able to see the glimmer in them of who they could be if the best of them came out. And the way that you love your kids is you beckon to that potential, that glimmer that you see in them. You fan that flame and you vigorously object to anything that would hamper its development. You put yourself in the way between them and whatever might keep that from burning bright in them. And I think that is what love is as a parent. And even in a spouse relationship, it's like we see who each other could be. I mean, we love and accept each other where we are today, but we also see who the other could be if the best of them came out. And so loving them is to love that part of them, and loving that into reality in this sense is like you're inviting them. And so it's challenge. And I think particular as dads, it's that challenge and support. The mother nurtures and nourishes and does all that, but the dad challenges and supports. Right. And so girls and boys, I'm challenging them all the time to go beyond what they think they're capable. But it's safe to do that because I've got you. It's safe to take risks. It's safe to, go out into the world and try stuff and be who you were meant to be. And when you
It's good.
kind of get some reps in of tangling with reality at that level where you're like, you know what, I'm going to go give it all I got in this endeavor and I'm going to leave it all out there. You get to know each other and there's kind of a safety and a camaraderie that emerges as the kids get older. It's fun. It's really fun. I bet you're seeing some of that now, Kent.
Yeah, for sure. The one thing that was coming to my mind was to share common interest, like to find an interest of theirs and share it with them. So with our oldest, it's definitely dirt bikes. And then one thing I'm doing with Lincoln and Jericho is, we like to, mom's going to sleep early because she gets up at 2 a.m. to bake bread. So if the girls go to sleep, Lincoln's not so much into this, but Jackson and Jericho and I love to watch movies together. So we're doing that almost once a week.
Like what movies? Like what level?
The movies
Not
I want to
Braveheart.
watch, dude.
Huh?
Oh, yeah,
No,
we'll watch
I
Braveheart.
think you got to watch stuff that's just at the edge of their ability to handle.
Okay, all right.
No, I'm
Oh, yeah,
serious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not. I don't have time to sit down and watch some dumb little movie. We're watching.
That's why I asked.
We're watching movies that I want to watch and they want to watch too. And because, this is a topic for another day maybe, but I'm not going to be the dad who is, going to be fast forwarding through a bunch of stuff. There's limits, of course, and my limits are probably way, way, way beyond a whole lot of people's limits. So I acknowledge that, but if it's not a explicit sex scene, then I'm probably going to be okay if they see it. But that's because I think those two can handle it, So,
Okay.
no, I mean, we're definitely watching R-rated movies, but it's R in the right ways,
Yeah.
So and then one of the girls loves music and I love music, so we share that in common.
Yeah.
And sort of celebrate that together. So finding interest you can share together. I see that more and more as they grow up, and it's fun for you too because, guess what? I like to watch a great movie, so that's fun for me.
I do too.
Absolutely.
You don't have to convince me to get on something with two wheels. I freaking love that too. So share interests together.
That's good.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, guys. I'm filing all this away because I love learning from other people. So, yeah.
And you're probably already doing the daddy-daughter date occasionally, but I would say
Occasionally.
that's huge. Yeah. The breakfast date once a month goes a long way.
Right. I see guys do that. Yeah. My daughter's 4, and so she's starting to recognize when we do something like that, like tension's on her and no one else, and
So fun.
comes alive. Yeah.
One of the things we did when the kids were young is, you mentioned music. We would just lay down in the family room sometimes and just put music on at pretty high volume and just work our way through the decades or work our way through a certain, genre of music and just talk about the artists and talk about what we liked about it. But we just made, darkened the room, laid on the floor and just listened and felt the music and
It's awesome.
talked about it. And we still, the kids still talk about that. It was probably 12 years ago.
Were the kids high when you were doing that also, Patrick?
I wasn't high. No, it was just,
Okay.
we were just vibing. But that's a fair question. But, I know about when it was because, when we were really focused on music, it was one time was in 2016, and Sturgill Simpson's album, 2016 or 17, his album Sailor's Guide to Earth came out, and we listened to that and listened to that and listened to that. And to this day, when that album comes on, the kids just get all reflective and kind of nostalgic because 2016, 17 era it was before we moved to Nashville, and they just remember that. Music has this powerful way to bring back these memories and transport us to another time and place. Speaking of, what are you guys listening to? What's your favorite? What are you spinning?
Me? Boy. It's pretty limited these days. I mean, I really the only genres I'm really spend a lot of time is obviously worship, because I do a lot of it at church, and so I'm always looking for a good song, or playing around a little bit with songwriting too. And then I like country too. So I mean, I feel kind of boring these days, but I like it. I used to listen to everything, and there'll probably be a time in my life where maybe I'll go back to that again. But I'm just, I don't really have. Of course, if I hear a good song, I'll go get it, or like a contemporary song. But I feel kind of out of touch. Like I feel kind of old, like as far as like keeping up with trends. Like I do, man. I'm like, I used to be all into that. Like,
Yeah.
15 years ago, I was like, man, new songs.
What's hot for you right now, Kent?
Stick Figure is a new band that we found this summer. Have you heard of them?
What genre?
Stick Figure. Yeah, it's sort of like Americana mixed with reggae a little bit, I guess. Would be one definition. Yeah, it's great music. Stick Figure.
I'll have to check
we've
it
been
out.
listening to a lot of Stick Figure this summer, because we only found him this summer, and Mariana found him actually, and so that was the new one for us. Some of the but I got back into ABBA a little bit recently again, just listening through ABBA Essentials. I mean, dang, there's some good stuff in there. I kind of like some of that nostalgic stuff a little bit. Just some of that stuff that when I was like a teenager, you just heartthrob on and rock out on and listen to a lot. It's fun to dip back into some of that stuff again,
Yeah.
But the quintessential nostalgic song for me is The Reason by Hoobastank.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just such a, like when I listen to, and every now and then I'll put that song on, and to me, it's just Applebee's, driving to Elmira, hockey games,
Bro.
hanging with the boys, late night camping,
Preach.
learning how to drive.
Preach.
It's just,
Yes.
but another one that I just don't ever get tired of Cody Jinks. And I don't know if you would actually call him country or not, but
Outlaw country.
Yeah, outlaw country. But to be honest, country is the only genre I have a hard time listening to. I just don't. I just never developed a taste for it. But man, Cody Jinks has some good songs.
Yeah. I listened to a good bit of Cody Jinks. I love Cody Jinks, and I have for a long time. I really do love his stuff. Him and Coder Wall. You listen to Coder Wall?
No.
Oh, dude, you got to check him out. He's legendary.
Okay.
Young Canadian guy, Western Canada. He's a working cowboy. Which reminds me, working cowboy. Have you come across this story about this bull rider named, I think he was J.B. Mooney was his name? It's like the toughest bull rider of all time. Does that ring a bell?
Oh yeah, I read books on him.
Really? Okay, so I just recently came across. I was thinking about metal. I was thinking about being tough and being tough as nails, and I came across this guy. And I'm like, this guy is tough as nails. At least, what do you know about him?
Well, if he's riding currently, it's not who I have in mind. The JB Mooney if it's the guy I have in mind, it's a guy from 20 years ago. So is the guy you're referencing, is he still riding, or no?
Probably not.
Okay.
Ty Murray? Is that who you're talking about, Kent?
No.
Oh,
JB.
sorry. I was thinking Ty Murray. Good call,
Okay.
Austin.
Okay.
Yep. My bad.
So JB Mooney.
No, I've seen.
He's no longer riding, but I mean, he's just one of these guys that's absolutely legendary for being tough. He's kind of iconic in that literally will jump on any bull and do it time and time again until he conquers the guy. I mean, he's super. I mean, he's had half of his body replaced with metal plates. He's 37 years old. But when you said that, it just made me think of the crazy tough bull rider, because in my mind he kind of stood out as an icon of somebody that has metal. But
Yeah. Metal and balls.
sorry, I kind of took us away from.
Did you guys watch that
the music conversation? But
I think it's on Amazon Prime. Did you watch the bull riding season, Kent? Dude, go check it out. The what's it called? The professional one, Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. Am I getting that right?
PRCA.
Yeah. So they actually did a draft last year, and they made teams, almost like a NFL. And so they had teams and this whole scoring thing, and they televised it. And I think it's on Amazon Prime. Dude, we got sucked in. I mean, you like bull riding, man. Like that's like, or like that kind of stuff. Like that was you and Ben hardcore back in the day. I think you'd like it. Like it's a whole season. You like watch episodes of them, and it gets in their personal lives, and like when they screw up, like, you know, they go deep. Like you get to know the people. It was really good. I can't wait till the next season comes out.
Hey, good for them. That's great. You know, it's great for the sport.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is really great for the sport.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, I know we're getting down on time, but I just kind of want to bring it back to, like, what do you, in terms of it, kind of bringing this idea back of, you know, developing the toughness, developing the character, developing, you know, tying it all together, what we've talked about in terms of the moment we're in our culture, the potential for things happening in your family, you know, the storm that hit, you know, all of that. What's one thing that you're taking action on in your life to, like, do you have a goal, or do you have something that you're actively working on to get better in? Towards that end, towards leading your family better, or making them more secure, or showing up in the world more true, or whatever, like broadly speaking.
Yeah. The one thing that would come to mind for me is I guess enjoy, what's the right word for it here, but maybe enjoying the process, enjoying the mundane, finding strength in the daily habits, the daily disciplines, seeing the everyday things as a grace of life. Time is going really fast for us right now. I don't know if it is for you guys too, but it's really, really actually kind of strange. It really feels like we're in a time warp.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the weeks go by like the days used to. And so, and we're starting to see that time is running short, probably with everyone living under one roof. You know, we're probably only a couple years, you know, while that's still the case.
Bro.
Several years, but maybe 5. I mean, I don't know, 4 to 6 probably. And it just seems like that's so much shorter than what it had always felt like. So,
yep.
So I guess realizing that, life really is made of moments, and trying to sort of enjoy and be present in those moments. As far as something actively working towards, I think, I'm focused intently on establishing some of these things that I'm into on the business front that I've started in the last year. And part of the reason for that is because again, time is running short. So I feel like I want to get those established as quick as possible, get cash flowing a little better as quick as possible, so that we can start to do more trips, experiences, adventures, vacations, if you will, even with the kids, because, I give my mom a lot of credit for how she did that with us. When I was in...
Dude, that was next level what she did.
Yeah. She took us a lot of places. She sent us a lot of places. We got a lot of experiences, made a lot of memories, and I give her credit for all of it. And she did it as a single mom, and the truth is, Lincoln's 14, and, he's not going... I have had more experiences in that category than he has at 14. And truth be told, I'm probably going to have more experiences by 17 than he's going to have by 17. He obviously, and I think about this. I do think about this from time to time, and I would like to be doing more of that stuff, providing more of those experiences for our kids. But it is what it is. And on the other hand, look, I didn't live in Nashville, Tennessee, and I didn't ride my dirt bikes on the street and have 6 boys that I was going to hang out with every single night after school, when he does. So, there's trade-offs. But I really would like to. So I guess to answer your question, Patrick, it's enjoying the everyday, and then and then hoping that the kids pick up on that, pick up on that they see their mom working hard, doing something that she enjoys and finds satisfaction in, and that they see almost an honor in that, and hopefully the same for me too. And then also wanting to spin up a little bit more cash here as quick as possible so that we can start to do more things with the kids.
Love it. What about you, Austin?
For us, we've been really working hard at what we call Shabbat, which is Sabbath. And it takes discipline, but it's been amazing. So practically speaking, like that has been life for our family. I'd heard of people doing it before. Kent's brother Ben and Alicia had done it. I've heard different people doing it, and always kind of was like, well, no, that's impossible. I'm in real estate. There's no way. Like, someone wants to see a house on Saturday. I mean, that's bread and butter I'm putting on the table. I'm going to go show the house. But my wife challenged me one time and sent me some podcasts, listened to it, and then tried it and failed, tried it and failed, tried it and failed, kept failing, got a little bit better at it, failed again, tried, got a little better. It was just, that kind of progression. And I'll never forget one moment I was frustrated because I wanted it to happen. And for us, most times it has to happen on a Saturday, because Sunday, a lot of times I'm working at church, and that's, if we have to, Sunday afternoon will work, but Saturday is the best day for us. And so, and this could be a whole other episode, but basically she was like I had these several appointments I couldn't get, in my mind, I couldn't get out of. And she was like, listen, Jesus is Lord of the Sabbath. Take it to him. Basically, like, buck up, man. Go take it to Jesus. So I did. And I was like, I prayed, like, just like that. Jesus, I want to do this. I feel like this is important to you. This is what you call my family to do in this season, but I don't know how to get out of these appointments. Within 24 hours, they all contacted me. They either canceled or postponed.
Wow.
And that's when it was like, okay, I get you, Lord. This is important to you. It is now important to me like it never has been before. But for us, it's great. Like Friday night, have a big meal, light a candle, call the Shabbat candle. Summer is starting to love it. Have a big meal. And then, dude, Friday night is just like this. I mean, Kent, you do amazing Friday night traditions. Like, Friday night is awesome. It's like at home. If I want to freaking watch a movie, we will. If we want to get it on, we will. Like, if I don't know, it's like, because I know that, like, at the very least, Saturday morning is free. I try to keep most of my Saturday free, but then it's different. Like, we get up, and last Saturday we were like it's not vegging, because vegging doesn't bring us life. It doesn't. Sitting on your phone scrolling all day long is terrible. You feel like junk at the end of the day. So we went to Pick and Patch and like did fall things with the kids. So for us, it's whatever brings us life. Sometimes for me, it's mowing the lawn and popping in my AirPods, listen to, used to be the Kent Lapp podcast, and now that's kind of died away.
Hey, at least I had one listener.
I know. No, I actually did find them interesting. Listening to podcasts. So that's practically one thing that we are constantly working on this stage of life, is because I mean, I just feel like you can always work. There's always something to do. Why though? Like, unto what? Like,
Yeah, and that's a topic that brings up a topic that we don't have time to get into today. The idea of hustle culture versus the kingdom of heaven.
yeah.
That's something
I
we
love
should probably
that, by
talk
the way.
about.
That was a really, bookmark that one for another session, because I'm totally into that. Like, yeah.
So right now I'm in transition from my day job to
Awesome, by the
coaching
way.
full time, and so it feels I'm still in my day job for another couple weeks, and I have to spin up the coaching business to a place where it can fully replace our income and sustain us. So I'm building out. I've got clients that I'm serving, so I'm doing all that, and I'm working full time. And so I could justify working all the time. I get it, but there is a sense in which the coaching thing seems to be coming from a place of more flow and more kind of creating out of fun and joy, and it's almost your
Would you
version
say you're
of
called
mowing the
to
land.
it? I mean, like I
Yeah,
can see
totally.
you doing it. Like I feel like the Lord's in it. Like
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it comes from a place of joy for sure. And so I don't. I mean, I love that I get to do that. But I do need to find ways to disrupt the pattern of working all the time and get into that
Right.
place of Shabbat.
yeah,
Where it's peaceful. Because I mean, the kingdom of heaven is, one of the markers of that is this shalom, this peace and flourishing that flows out of it. So
yeah.
let's put that on the docket for another episode of Metal and Forge. All right. Well, let's wrap things up. Anything? Well, I guess I'll share just kind of what I'm focused on right now to finish that round of questions. It is to build. I'm focused on building right now. I'm coaching and building that business, creating the content around it, and having the conversations to put me in relationships that I need to be in. And it's the first time I've been entrepreneurial in 20 years, and it feels really good. And it's also very demanding, and I love it. I'm doing it scared in one sense. Like I'm always doing something I'm not sure about, kind of at the edge of my capability. But that's where time just kind of disappears, and it just flow. It's just fun. It's the joy to do it. So I'm grinding in one sense, but it doesn't feel like a grind. So that's kind of where I'm at.
That's awesome. Hey, Patrick, give everyone your website on that again, because this is something you're just starting. You're obviously very passionate about it. I know you, I think, pretty well. I see this as something that's you're very gifted for. I see this as something that is right in your sweet spot, right in your wheelhouse. And, there's a pretty direct match here with what you're doing, your skill set. And, you're taking a risk on this in terms of the amount of time you're investing in it, the amount of energy you're putting into it, and so, you're taking it seriously, I guess is my point. You're investing a lot in it. And I think it's going to be really great for the people that could benefit from something like this. So where can people find this?
It's goodking.life. It's a community of men who are like-hearted, who are committed to the path of Christ, and who want to get free from whatever's holding them back, deepen their relationship with their marriage, with their wife, deepen their marriage, and be a better dad to their kids. All the things that we care about, we just work on that in a mentorship community. And guys are getting more wholehearted. It's fantastic. I've seen some of these guys step up and become the kind of men that their wife wants to sleep with again, instead of sleeping on the couch, and building trust and openness and deepening their intimacy and experiencing God's love in more profound ways. It's been really, there's nowhere else I'd rather be than in those moments with people where they're seeing their life change, and experiencing God's love in a more full way, either in their bodies, their spirits, or in their marriages. So goodking.life on Instagram, goodking.life. We're building that out.
You're like right there in the Holmes County, Ohio. Is that where you're at?
My clients are everywhere, but yes, I have a couple local.
Place. Yeah, it's a perfect place. Awesome.
So it's been cool. I look forward to the journey. I've got a good mentor who's helping me with it, and I've got some good guys already that I'm walking with, and it's exciting to see.
Cool.
That's awesome, man. Wish you the best on that. We'll be cheering you along, helping out however we can. I hope it goes great. Hey, Patrick,
these conversations.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, these conversations very much dovetail with the conversations we're having in the Good King. So I'm thrilled to be a part of this. Yeah.
Perfect. Hey, Miller, I don't know if you're going to get to this, but just because it's on my mind, thinking about like the different optimized states to be in different seasons. Were you going to touch on that yet, or?
Well, if we have time, let's do it. How are you guys on time?
Good.
Yeah, we're okay.
Sleeping.
I think we're in.
If we're good to keep rocking, then let's keep rocking. I thought if we don't get to it, we can save it. Yes, and we actually kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. Where what's it look like to optimize for the state and the season you're in, which is kind of what we've been just talking about. Is like, what's the thing that you're working on in this season? And I guess the next question is, are you optimized for it? And if not, what does that look like? When I was thinking about this, and I want to hear how you think about optimizing for the season that you're in, because I heard both of you guys talk about wanting to just enjoy finding joy in the mundane, finding joy in the everyday, and being more present with what is in the everyday. And that's maybe the season that you're in. It feels like to me, yes, I want to do that, but I'm also very much in a season of growth and going. Like am I present? Well, not as much as I'd like to be, but optimizing for me in this season is go. And so as I thought about seasons, I thought about, well, we're getting into fall. There's different seasons in the spring of your life and in the summer and the fall and the winter of your life. And there's different modes of being that optimize you for that. So I'm curious, like when you think about optimizing for the season you're in, what's the thing that beckons to you? What do you think about?
Well, I had 4 states here that I'd love to just breeze over if you're cool with it, Patrick. Because
I'd love to.
You guys' thoughts on it. I mean, this is pretty tactical, but the one state is when you have young kids, because we were having kids for a decade. Every 2 years, 5 kids. Boom, there's 10 years of your life.
Here.
And it's a very, now being on the other side of that, I'd say 2-3 years pretty firmly, maybe 3 or 4 even. A few years on the other side of that particular season, to me, it's even more crystallized, more evident, more clear, like, wow, that was a very particular season. And when you're going through it, it feels less like a season and it kind of feels like just the rest of your life.
Here.
It's Austin's in it right now. So as I was thinking about like that one is a couple of things that I was thinking about. One, I think it's important just to hang on, because time is going to keep passing and it's actually going to pass way quicker than it feels like in the moment. So I
don't believe that, but I receive it.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm sure.
What do they say? The days are long, but the years are short.
Yeah, exactly. And I think on the hang on piece, it's just important to realize here, if you're a 32-year-old single professional living in a city with a great income, doing sauna and ice bath and CrossFit and, social events 3 nights a week, that's fantastic. More power to you. Do it. Meditating once a day, all these things, fantastic. Absolutely do it. It's just not reasonable to think you're going to be able to do that when you have 3 kids, or 2, or maybe even 1. So there's just a hold on element of that. Yep. And then I was also thinking too about, number 2, enjoy the little moments. Number 3, I do feel like it's important in that season to prioritize your wife. These kids' mom, your wife. You don't want to let the kids ruin everything.
That's right. That's right.
Good to hear.
and then just remember it's a season. So, and the second one I have here, again, these are pretty tactical. Is depression. Seasons of depression. What's the best state to be in here? And number 1, I would say, and maybe these aren't necessarily in order, but this is just how it was coming to me. Don't trust your mind. If you're in a state of depression, do not trust your mind. Trust, at this point, you need to trust what you know to be true. Trust what you know to be true about the world, how things work. Don't trust your mind. I'll give you a small example, and I know this because I have experienced plenty of depression, and I'm convinced I could have been diagnosed with chronic depression at multiple points in my life. But I'll give you a small example. Over the last 4 years, my back has been out 2-3 times per year. I mean, it's ridiculous. I'm going to have to do something at some point because this is not good. And it went out again about a week and a half ago. I have even noticed when something as simple as off as my back being out, I can't totally trust my mind. I have to sort of know I'm in a dip. Things may feel like they're a certain way right now, but I have to acknowledge my back is out and my body's messed up and I can't trust things right now. So if I can't totally trust my mind and how I'm feeling about things when my back is out, it's 100 times worse with depression. But the other thing I think about with depression too is, and this may sound, like maybe it's not common knowledge, but I think it's important to focus on your body. Yeah. Get up early, eat clean, sweat it out. I don't care if that's on a run, at the gym, in a sauna. You got to sweat. You got to get sweat moving through your body. Drink plenty of water, but focus on your body because everything is all tied together. And And in this, on this focusing on our body thing, I think this is partly why it's important to start building good habits. We were talking about, what are the things you should be building when things are going well, so that you have an arc when things are going poorly. Good habits is one of those, because if you can build good habits and then and then you fall into a period of depression, this is why you need your habits now, because now you're going to have to rely on your habits. They're going to be the net that you're going to fall down onto. And so focus on your body. And then the other thing is, I would think about, I guess this is the third thing, consider what your body is trying to tell you. Consider what this depression is trying to tell you. Because it could be that if there's trauma that hasn't been worked through properly, then something like therapy is a really good option. It could be that if there's something that is directionally wrong in your life and you do not want to admit it, you don't want to think about it, you don't want to face it head on, and you definitely don't want to make a change, that could keep this depression around. This depression could be, in some cases, I'm not even saying in most, but I'm just saying in some cases, depression could be trying to tell you that something is not right in your life and you need to make a change. So there's a lot more that could be said on that one, but those were a few things that came to mind on that point.
That is so good. And I literally was writing this to the guys in the Good King community today in our group chat. Is I talked about how when we experience anxiety and or depression, that the vast majority of the time it is revealing one of two things: that there's some kind of, as you mentioned, trauma or memory that is subconscious but is bothering us and is keeping our nervous system from being in harmony. And it affects the way that we think and the way we feel. Or it could be that there's something about our life that we're not wanting to look at, that we've swept under the rug, that isn't as it's running at cross purposes to the truth or to the highest and best patterns in our life, or what, cross purposes to love maybe, but it might be a habit or a mindset or a relationship dynamic, something that we haven't had the courage to turn and face and look at. We've been avoiding it. It could be the credit card balance. It could be the growing calorie binging. It could be this number on the scale. It could be the number in your bank account. It could be the distance in your relationship with your wife. Any of these things that are happening, like there's a true part of us that's created in the image of God that notices that that's happening and objects to it. And I think that manifests itself sometimes as anxiety and or depression to get our attention and go, hey, something is not right here. And then I think we always have to be curious about what our suffering is teaching us, what it's pointing us to.
Agreed.
Interesting.
Agreed. Yeah, I totally agree. And, and sometimes it's the job, sometimes what you're doing for work is not what you're supposed to be doing long-term. And it doesn't mean that you need to switch something today. It might mean that you need to start to develop a plan to make a change. And what I've noticed is that when you acknowledge it and you start to create a plan and you start to at least acknowledge you have a problem and something needs to be different, that's the point at where things get better. So if it is your job and you create a 2-year exit plan, it's not like it gets better 2 years when you're filing a different job. It gets better when you make the decision and you start to create a plan.
You have a plan and you see yourself making progress along that plan. That's when the positive emotion starts coming back.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And the amount of times that I have woke up anxious, discouraged, depressed, and I don't want to knock this, but I'm just saying it, and very well could have sent out a text, for people and asked them for prayer based on how I was feeling so anxious and so distraught and unrest in my soul. And maybe even depressed in some degree, but I like to use the word depression when I mean actual depression. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to discredit that, because I feel like I have experienced plenty of depression. So what I'm talking about is anxious, unrest. Something is not right. I feel wrong on every level. and could have absolutely asked for prayer. And I'm not saying that's necessarily the wrong answer, but what needed to happen is I needed to go to the gym and I needed to freaking lay it out for an hour and sweat it out and just grind hard and come back and you feel way better, you know? So if you're sleeping in and if you're eating junk food and you're not moving your body, you're going to feel depressed and anxious, and that's a problem and you can fix it, you know? So I think I'm pointing that out because it is maybe less commonly talked about. You know, when it comes to mental health, we're talking about counseling, we're talking about therapy, we're talking about support groups, we're talking about rest, we're talking about all these things. Those things are sometimes the answer, but they're not always the answer. Sometimes the answer is you need to get up and you need to work. Maybe you just need to get up earlier, or, you know, or maybe you need to go to the gym first thing in the morning, because that seems to be really helpful for me somehow for the way my body is wired. If I'm sleeping in and I don't go to the gym first thing in the morning, I'm a wreck the first half of the day, you know, and then if I do go to the gym midday or later on, then it's better from there. So it just has helped me to get up early, go to the gym first thing. I feel way better. But there's two other states that I was thinking of, Patrick. I'll just buzz over them real quick and get you guys' thoughts on it. The third one, which is the most fun one, is when you're in a season of winning. You know, what's the optimized state to be in when you're winning, you know? Because I hope most people listening to this kind of know what I'm talking about. Like, there are these seasons that you're in where you just feel like you're winning, you know, and that's really cool. And, you know, I kind of feel like we should have those seasons as frequent and as long in duration as possible. Why not? It's fun. But one of the things I would suggest is something to think about in a state of winning is just be thinking about, like, how can you leverage your current energy momentum to build more of what will continue even when there's less gas in the tank. Because I don't know about you guys, but I definitely can be, sometimes I'll just be in a state where it's like, man, I can do anything, and you just have energy and it's coming naturally and you're in flow state and you're feeling good. And, you know, maybe the money's great, you know, things are rocking. Go for it. Like, I'm not going to be the guy who's like, okay, when you're feeling great, try to bring yourself down a little bit. And when you're feeling down, try to bring yourself up a little bit. I mean, come on. If you're winning and you're feeling high, I would be careful not to sort of like overextend yourself, because like what goes up must come down. That is the thing when you take Molly, which I haven't done, but what I've heard Andrew Huberman talk about is your dopamine and serotonin spike so much that when you come off, you actually go in a dip. And I think that can happen too, coming off a season of winning too, like if you spike too much, but leverage it, like use it to your advantage. Patrick, I think you're rocking right now. I think you're passionate. I think you're engaged. I think you're invested. I think you're doing work. You're doing a lot of work, but you don't care because you enjoy it.
That's right.
So, but it might not always be that way, you know? So, but right now that's your season. So leverage the heck out of that. You know what I mean? If you work a few more hours than you'd always like to the rest of your life, who cares?
Right.
You're rocking and rolling. You have momentum right now. Frickin' build, you know,
let's go.
Leverage that to build more of what's going to continue even when you're down, so that when you're down, you can kind of ride on that a little bit, you know?
I love that.
And then
that's good insight.
Yeah. And then the last one that I was thinking about is when you're in a state of losing, in a state of trouble, in a state of failure, maybe. And when you're in this state of losing or hardship or trouble or failure, I think it's really important to remember that it is a season. It will not always be like this. And the truth is, a lot of times I think these states change quicker than you might think they would. So if you're in this state, just know it's a season. Keep going. Do not quit. It is not always going to be like this. I'd be thinking too about, like, what can you learn? You know, what can you learn from this? I think that's an important one. And then start to be thinking about how we can best navigate forward, you know? And if you're knocked down hard enough, you don't need to go up and, like, you know, just get up the next day and just go balls to the wall on something again. You know, sometimes maybe if you haven't been knocked down very hard, maybe that's a thing. But so I'm not saying that should be a common thing, but you should, when you're able, beginning to think about how you can best navigate forward, you know, because you don't want to be in this state forever. You're not going to be in this state forever. But part of the reason you're not going to be in this state forever is because you're going to start taking action. You're going to start creating a plan, making some decisions, moving forward again. And that's important. So start to be thinking, when you're able, how you can best navigate going forward. 4, focus on what you can control. I'm a big fan of this one. Focus on what you can control. that cuts out so much bullshit if you're in a corporate environment, focus on what you can control. If you're down, just focus on what you can control. You can't control the outcome, but you can focus on, what you can control. And then, just remember that your position could and probably will feel different quicker than it might feel like in the moment. So those were 4 just very tactical sort of states. And maybe this is just a reflection on, on what I've experienced maybe most commonly with those 4 states. But I do feel like, there is, at least I've heard over the years, more talk on this idea of like an optimized state, as if there's one optimized state to be in. And I just don't think it works that way. I think there's different seasons. And then I think within those seasons, though, there's a few like optimizations, a way to best think about things depending on the season that you're in. So I'm just curious what you guys thought on that, but that was a few thoughts that had come to mind.
What resonates with you, Austin?
Can we go back to the original question again? Optimized states of...
Yeah, just the best state to be in for the season that you're in.
Oh, yeah.
Or is there an optimized state to get into?
Yeah. I agree with what you're saying about the moving thing. Practically speaking, if I sleep in, like for me, it's not even necessarily, working out, yes, that definitely helps me. But I've been experimenting with prayer for half an hour to an hour some mornings. And the funny thing is I feel good doing that too. I'm all about physical discipline, believe me, I am. But I guess for me, with optimized state for me is like just being present and allowing myself to feel whatever happens. So I have this wheel called the feelings wheel. I don't know if you can see it, but it kind of helps me, like, I don't know, feel what's happening around me. Like for example, there was, while we were in this podcast, there was a text that came through that, it was a deal that had closed, but there was a angst to it, and I could bury that. I could push that down and I could get through the podcast, but for me, okay, so it made me anxious. Like, let's let that go through my body. Let's let that pass through. I'm going to digest that. I'm going to sit in that for a minute. I'm not going to push it down. I'm not going to stifle it, because whenever I do that, I have to use, and it's pornography for me. So that's my drug of choice. It's not my drug of choice, but you know what I mean? Like, and so
sure.
I'm like, well, I can sit in this anxiety, like you're talking about, Kent, like, or whatever it is, whatever's causing the depression, what's behind that? Like, getting curious, I guess, is like, why am I depressed? Why am I 3 days into, whatever it is, and I'm depressed? What's going on? Like, I have to take a minute and sit with me, because I don't like me right now. And I have to sit with me, and let's do some digging. Let's get curious, and let's ask questions. Let's have a judgment-free Austin zone here where, okay, what's going on? And a lot of times I can trace it back to either something that happened recently. Sometimes it's something in my past, like, something that happened when I was a kid or whatever. But basically, the optimized state for me is like just being present and allowing whatever happens to me, like however that makes me feel or think, like just sitting in that. And sometimes, honestly, a good workout, it does just kind of get those things flowing, or an ice bath or whatever. But if there's something underlying there, that's not going to fix it. For me, it's learning how to be present. And, I think that verse, like Jesus said, and you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. I used to think that meant, the Bible, and the Bible will set you free. Well, that's not actually what that word means there in the Greek. That word means reality.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Sometimes knowing the reality, like me just knowing the reality of me, and what makes me tick, and why I'm depressed or because I've been struggling with it lately too. It's like, why am I depressed? And sometimes just knowing the truth is enough to set me free. So that's where optimized state for me.
Yeah, I think that I love that because it's true that when you get more connected with what is, with the reality of what is, and it starts to inform you. And if you approach it with compassionate inquiry rather than judgment, and just noticing.
I knew you would be into this, by the way, Patrick.
Yeah,
I knew you would
yeah,
be
totally. I mean, this is part of what we do in The Good King is like, okay, well, let's just witness and see what comes up, and don't
sit in this for a minute.
Judge that. Just be with it, and being able to name these things, and exercise our agency as a creator consciousness, where it's like, well, the logos that holds all things together is also in me, and that's something I can embody. That's something I can connect to. And there's a radical ownership and responsibility in that, in some senses. Like, I could run away with my thoughts and go down this judgmental and anxious way, or I can go, you know what? I'm going to choose to trust and just be with this, and just start to take responsibility. Yeah, just be with it. Don't judge it.
There's no bad feelings.
Well, and if there are bad feelings, like, just pay attention. It's like,
I guess, sorry, I meant there's no bad emotions. That's what I was.
Yeah, there's no bad. Yeah, that's right. It's
bad to act on emotions, but actually, and I was just journaling for a while.
Good.
Yeah, just to have them. Like, I was journaling for a while, trying to okay, where on this feelings wheel spectrum am I? And I would write. And after about 3 or 4 weeks, I was like, man, I got a lot of fear. But I didn't know that before. Like, I didn't know that because I didn't know how to take inventory of me. I love stuff like that. So I don't know, just, being present.
Well, I think it was Carl Jung that said that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our lives, and we will call it fate.
So good.
Yeah. And
say that again?
Until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our lives, and we will call it fate.
That's so good.
So, something like that. But yeah, those subconscious patterns can be shaping how we interpret reality, and it's not the capital T truth.
Right.
There is a capital T truth to reality. There is a gist and a grain to the way that God created everything, the created order. And we can either live in harmony with those highest patterns of being. God said he is love, and he said, I am. He said, I'm the ground of being, and I am love. So that's the gist, fundamentally, of reality, is God's love. And everything that runs at cross purposes to that will at some point be destroyed. And everything that I think that's why every knee will bow, to go back to the apocalyptic vision, is everything will be drawn into the magnetic draw of love, and every knee will bow to that love that is fundamental to reality at some point. And
you can do it now, or you can do it later.
Yep, that is the law that holds all things together, and it is the eternal spirit of Christ, the Logos that is in us, and yes, all of that. So very cool. Well, my little baby girl is wanting me to put her to sleep. We've got this little rhythm right now in our house where she's been a mama baby for the first 3.5 months, but in the last 2 weeks, she and I have really been able to bond. And now she loves to go outdoors, which I just love. She just is in awe at the outdoors. And at night, when it's time to go to bed, she wants to go out and lay on the hammock and fall asleep on my chest. That is how she wants to fall asleep.
That is
and it's like a chilly fall evening, and it's crispy out there, and she wants to be out there. She cries when MJ holds her and tries to nurse her, and she's like, she wants to go out and be on the hammock. It's so funny how you can start to read their desires and like, what do they want? And she gets out there and she just lays on my chest And she props her chin up on my chest and she looks at me and she lays her arms out on my chest like this. And we're just belly to belly. And she's just like peering up at me. And for about 3 minutes.
That's awesome.
And then she's out. So
Wow.
I'm going to go do that
cool,
right
man.
now. Yeah.
That's
You do
cool.
that.
You do that.
All right, guys. It's been fun. Thanks for initiating this conversation. Metal and Forge, episode 1 in the books. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please join the conversation. Kent, you've got the email address, right? Well, no,
Yes,
we've actually, let's send people to the website. How about that?
Yes,
mettleandforge.com.
Yes, mettleandforge.com. Metal is spelled METTLE. Mettleandforge.com.
Yes.
Because there we have a contact form. And what would be cool is if you want to go to mettleandforge.com, you can do this anonymously or you can put your name in there. We don't care. If there's something you want us to talk about on the show, put that in there. And if you have feedback on the show, you're like, man, you know, this was great, but hey, this was annoying. Hey, we're down for it. So if you want to just, you know, put a little note to us at mettleandforge.com, even about like what's working and what's not on the show, great. But then we have it there. If there's questions that you want us to get to, we'll discuss it. If there is something you want us to talk about, you know, just put those in there. So mettleandforge.com.
That's right. We'd love to hear from you.
Sweet.
Thanks for being a part of the show. Brothers, it's been good to see you. Go love on your families and let's go kill it.